Hello and welcome. This is In the News. I'm your host, Keith Landers. Thank you for viewing. If you like the page, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the page so you won't miss a show. This is a show we deal with national news, local news, and everything else in between. And you'll get my colorful opinions, of course. What's in the news this time, this news cycle, is voting. And we're going to focus in right here in Ohio on what's on the ballot in Ohio and how you can break down what's on the ballot and understand the issues on this ballot, because sometimes you get to the polls and you may see some names that you haven't seen before. You may see some issues you haven't seen before. So we're going to clarify that. Now, I got to make a disclosure here. The only thing you'll find different is their state representatives, because they're different districts. Now, I give you the representatives that are running in my district. Now, if you want to find out what state representatives you're running in your district, you can always get your cell phone out, talk into it, who's my state representative, and it will pop up in your district. So that'll be about the only difference. But everything else, it'll be straight line what we got. And so I do want to give a shout out to an individual. We call him Coach Powell. His name is Alfred Powell. Coach Powell put a video on voting on his Facebook page, and he gave me permission to show this video at the end of this show. So thank you, Coach Powell. And thank you to your son, Alfred Powell. y'all good people. If you haven't heard Coach Powell speak, boy, if you get a chance, do it. And he also has some books out. Message in a Bottle 1, Message in a Bottle Volume 2, that deal with the malt liquor industry. Excellent books, read both of them. He probably has some more books out, but which I don't know about, but that's good. But Coach Powell, excellent motivator with these young kids. Listen to him. He'll give you a lesson of life. His son is just a chip off the old block. He's right in there with his daddy, getting close, but he's right in there. So I appreciate the Powells. Thank you, Alfred Powell, for letting me use this video. Watch this video at the end. It's very powerful on voting. So let's get started. And I ran across an article in the CBS News, and it says why broadcasters must air political ads even if they contain misinformation. Now, politicians use public airways to persuade American voters voting in every election. And broadcasters must air these ads, no matter how controversial. Due to a law passed nearly 9 decades ago, it was called the Communication Act of 1934. And it states that broadcasters have no power of censorship over any legally qualified candidate for office. It requires the station to offer their lowest rates available ahead of the election. Now, according to university professor Joseph Watson, who also served under President George W. Bush administration telecommunication policy individual, he said that while everyday commercials, advertisers can face allegations of stretching the truth, they're at least required by law to back up their claims with facts. Those do not apply to political candidates. And so he did a morning show on CBS, and the host asked him, she said, so a cereal commercial can lie about, so a cereal company can't lie about their cereal, but a candidate can lie about politics. And Mr. Watson answered absolutely yes. So also the Communication Act of 1934 also applies to broadcasters' airways, but doesn't include cable networks or media companies, which have the power to reject or remove misleading political content. And also it goes in line with the Constitution First Amendment protected speech. So that's how you get these politicians who misuse the airwaves and lie to the public to try to get into elected office. Let me say this about people running for elected office. The way I do it is, if I'm listening to a candidate and the only thing that candidate is saying about negative stuff about his opponent and not saying what that person's agenda, what he will do, how he would do it, then shy away from that person, because they have no policies and they're hiding behind no policies. They just want to dirty up their opponent. Listen for candidates who have policies that will help the situation that this country is in now, right? So if a politician blames their opponent for having high taxes, then how is that person who's blaming another person for high taxes, how is he going to reduce taxes? See, that's if he blames this individual about violence, how are you going to reduce violence? All right. And so that's how you pick your candidates. Don't worry about the R or the D or whatever alphabet they got after their name or before their name. Look at what these people are going to do. Listen to what they say. And if they're not talking about how they're going to resolve some of the issues, hey, I'd shy away from them. All right. So let's get into this. I got a sample ballot, and I go down this ballot, and I will highlight the races and say what political party they're in, and I may just give some commentary on one or two of these things. Okay, so the governor and the lieutenant governor, we have Mike DeWine and John Husted, who are Republicans. They're the incumbents. They're running against Nan Whaley and Cheryl L. Stevens. For Attorney General, you have Jeffrey A. Crossman, who's a Democrat, running against Dave Yost, who's Republican. For Auditor of the State, you have Keith Faber, who's Republican, and you have Taylor Sappleton, who's a Democrat. For Secretary of State, you have Tesifo Tor Morales, and I may have messed up his name, but I got close. All right, and you have Sarissa Clark and Frank LaRose. Sarissa Clark is Democrat. Frank LaRose is Republican. For the Treasurer of the State, you have Scott Chester, and who's the Democrat, and you have Robert Sprong as the Republican. For the Chief of Supreme Court, Ohio Supreme Court. Now, I'm going to comment on these here in a minute. For the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, you have Jennifer Berner, who's a Democrat, running against Sherry L. Kennedy, who's a Republican. Now, for the Justice of the Supreme Court, you have Pat Fisher running against Terry Jameson. Pat Fisher's a Republican. Terry Jameson is Democrat. For the Supreme Court in Ohio, you have Pat DeWine, who is Mike DeWine's oldest son, running against Marilyn Zayas. And I'll come back to those in a minute, those state justices. Also, you have for Judge of Common Pleas, you have Steve Abshire going against Julie Burns. Also for Judge of Common Pleas, Mary Wiseman, I believe she's running unopposed. Also for Judge of Common Pleas, you have Kim Merlick and Tony Schoen. For Judge of Common Pleas also, you have Bob Hansman, and also Angelina Jackson. Now, here's these issues you have. Issue 1, and I'll talk about issue 1 in a minute when I get down. Issue 1, it requires the courts, when using the amount of bail, to consider public safety, including the seriousness of the offense, as well as the person's crime record, the likelihood that the person will return to the court, and any other factor that the Ohio General Assembly may prescribe. It also removes the requirement that the procedure for establishing the amount and the conditions of bail be determined by the Supreme Court of Ohio. And issue 2, it removes any citizen of the United States who is at least 18 years of age and who has been a legal resident and registered voter for at least 30 days can vote in any state or local election held in that state. Now, it also prohibits local governments from allowing a person to vote in a local election if they are not legally qualified to vote in the state election. I'm going to explain that in a minute. Also, you'll find in there a proposed tax renewal for St. Clair Community College. And that's just a renewal, and it won't raise your taxes. So let me repeat that. The St. Clair renewal tax levy, it will not raise your taxes. All right? So be on the lookout. That will be on your ballot. The only difference is your state representatives. That because each district have, different representatives. I mentioned those Ohio Supreme Court nominees. Now, the Columbus Dispatch reported that 2 on the Ohio Supreme Court won't weigh in on the 2020 election results. Now, here's what they said. The Columbus Dispatch reported that 2 Republican Supreme Court justices refused to acknowledge the results of the 2022 election. Instead, Sharon Kennedy refused to answer the question, and Pat Fisher could only muster, I don't know, I guess, he's the president, isn't he? And Pat DeWine simply answered he had no reason to believe the 2020 elections results weren't legitimate. And this follows their appearance at a Trump rally that was held in Youngstown. Let me say this, folks. Well, hold on. Let me quote the Ohio Democratic Party spokesman, Matt Keyes. He said, Republican Supreme Court justices are clearly more beholden to MAGA Republicans and their political party than the rule of law. If these justices can't muster up enough courage to acknowledge the truth out of fear of political retribution, they certainly can't be trusted to rule fairly and impartially from the bench. Ohioans deserve better. And that's the statement by the Ohio Democratic Party spokesman, Matt Keyes. And I couldn't agree more. Because, look, folks, if these folk can't come to the truth to say that the 2020 election was not stolen, Donald Trump lost by a landslide, and you're running for a judge position, your judgment is cloudy. You shouldn't even be running anyway. Because we all know Donald Trump filed 60 lawsuits. Didn't win one of them, none. Went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court rejected that notion that the election was stolen. Some of these judges who ruled against Donald Trump about the 2020 election being stolen, he appointed to the bench. So all this nonsense about you don't know if it was stolen or not, you're lying. And you should not be in a judge position using that kind of language and lying, because you turning yourself off from the truth. I missed somebody on the, I missed a whole bunch of people. Let me go back to my ballot. I flipped the page and missed a whole bunch of people. U.S. Senator Tom Ryan is running against J.D. Vance, all right, for representative of Congress, the 10th district, which is my district. You got David S. Roddy, who's the Democrat, and you got Mike Turner, who's the Republican. J.D. Vance also stated that Donald Trump was cheated out of election. An election was stolen from Donald Trump. That's J.D. Vance. Now, J.D. Vance also, when he came back to Ohio, said he was going to open up an opioid fund and do some things to help these people who are suffering with opioid addiction. Well, come to find out, J.D. Vance took that money, did whatever he wanted to do with the money, did not produce not one opioid program, and he got away with it. So he can't even be trusted already. So I hope Tim Ryan, who's the Democrat, and this J.D. Vance, I'm telling you folks, if these people come in here talking about Donald Trump won, the election was stolen from Donald Trump, like J.D. Vance and the rest of these Supreme Court justices, that Sharon Kennedy and that Pat Fletcher, do not trust these people. You know what I mean? They're lying to you. We know Donald Trump lost, but let me continue. Also, for state representative in the 36th district, you have Allison Caruso, who's a Democrat, running against Adrian White, who's Republican. Also, for the judge of Court of Appeals, 2nd District, you have Mary Kate Huffman. And for the judge of the Court of Appeals, 2nd District, you have Roland C. Lewis. And also for the judge of 2nd District, you have Mike Tucker. All these people are running unopposed, and they're Democrats. For Montgomery County Commissioner, you have Carolyn Rice, who's a Democrat, running against Jordan Wortham, who's Republican. For the county auditor, Montgomery County auditor, you have Carl Keefe running against Carl George Cordales. And also for the member of the State Board of Education, you have Charlotte McGuire, who's running unopposed. And that completes the list. Almost left those people out. Those are important people. And by the way, that Senate seat, that's what Tim Ryan is running for, and J.D. Vance is running for. That's the seat that Rob Portman had. And Rob Portman retired, thank God. And so he can go on about his business. And so one of these individuals will take that seat. And I hope and pray that it's Tim Ryan, because we don't need people who can't tell the truth. And J.D. Vance can't tell the truth when you asked him, who did Donald Trump, was the election stolen from Donald Trump? J.D. Vance says yes. J.D. Vance cannot be trusted. You know why? Because J.D. Vance cannot tell the truth. Plain and simple. We got to stop mixing words here, folks. This is too serious. Okay, let me move on to this issue 1. Now, what issue 1 is all about? It's about bail. And what happens in the bail situation, they want this was a bill that the Republicans put together. And bail allows some accused persons with enough money to be freed pre-trial, while others without enough money remain incarcerated for the same or lesser crime. And so we know how that works out, don't we? And let me say this, the ACLU put out a statement. The ACLU put out a press release and saying to vote no on issue 1. It's unnecessary, it's politically motivated in an attempt to enshrine cash bail into the Ohio Constitution. And let me say this. This is what the ACLU is saying. It says, issue 1 amends the Constitution to fix a non-existent problem. The proposal was born out of divisive rhetoric to intentionally blur the lines between cash bail and public safety. We know that cash bail does not keep us safe, and this bail measure only doubles down on the failed status quo, where wealthy individuals can purchase their freedom simply because they have the money to do so. And that's Patrick Higgins, policy counsel for the ACLU of Ohio. It also goes on to say that this whole effort could boil down to guilty until proven wealthy. Cash bail hurts our communities and our economy, and disproportionately negative impact falls most heavily on black and brown people and low-income Ohioans. All right, so, matter of fact, there is a House Bill 315, that deals with this cash bail system. It was a bipartisan bill. So I don't know why the Republicans didn't take this up and have a vote on this Ohio House Bill 315. They tried to skirt around it, put it into an issue, muddy up the language of the issue so people wouldn't understand what the heck it is, right? And so that people can vote for this nonsense, So that's issue 1. Issue 2. Now, this issue 2, this is a real zinger. This was put in by Republicans too. It requires that only citizens of the United States who are at least 18 years of age, who have been legal residents or registered voters for at least 30 days, can vote in any state or local election held in the state. Prohibits local governments from allowing any person to vote in local elections if they are not legally qualified to vote in the state election. Now, that sounds good, don't it? But let me tell you this, federal law does not allow non-citizens to vote in federal election, but does not prohibit them from voting in local elections. So it's already federal law. They're trying to do away with federal law. Now, here's the other con about this thing. Non-citizens, legal residents are tax-paying members of our community. This amendment prevents these residents from the right to vote provided to other taxpayers. This amendment also weakens the ability for municipalities to govern themselves. And here's the catch, folks. This amendment eliminates the right of 17-year-olds who will be 18 by election day to vote in the primary election, as well as permanently makes the voting registration deadline 30 days prior to election day. See, we used to get a lot of young folks out and registered so they can vote. All right. And I think back when now Mayor Jeffrey Mims, when he was Commissioner Jeffrey Mims, him and his group, I think ex-Mayor Mayor Dixon, they gathered up a bunch of folks together and they started registering these young people when they were 17, because they'll be 18 when the election hit, to go vote. If this passed, that'll stop all that. You know what I mean? So we got to be careful how we vote on these things, folks. And a matter of fact, this prohibits local governments from allowing a person with the lack of qualifications as an elector to vote in local elections. This is already in place, so there's no need to put this piece of thing together. All right. One more piece of information I want to part you with is state representative for the 40th district, which is Amy Cox, who is a Democrat running against Rodney Creech. Now, I know Amy Cox. I know of Amy Cox. She's good people. She's been out there. She's pro-union. I've seen her. She's been out there campaigning and helping other folk campaign and getting out there on Saturday and Sunday and doing what you need to be done. She good people, folk. Union, pro-union, just like Supreme Court Justice Jennifer Berner, pro-union. I can't find a pro-union Republican nowhere. Maybe there's one out there. I can't find it. And also, let me highlight the race for the 39th district for the state of Ohio, which is LaRonda F. Jackson running against Phil Plummer. Now, LaRonda F. Jackson, she posted up on Facebook that the NAACP had two candidates nights. Phil Plummer failed to show up for either one of them. I guess he was too busy, huh? The NAACP, folks, candidates night, right? The oldest black civil rights organization in the land. Phil Plummer too busy for both of them, I guess, because he didn't show up. Miss Jackson showed up. She made the time. The other candidates, they showed up. I guess Phil Plummer don't want to talk to us. If you don't want to talk to me, guess what? I ain't got to vote for you, and he's not in my district anyway. Willis Blackshear Jr. is my representative out of the 38th district. And Willis Blackshear Jr. doing a fine job. Thumbs up, Mr. Blackshear. So I just wanted to highlight those two. And because we got to be careful who we send to the State House. All politics is local. Now, if you missed something in this video, I suggest you rewind it and look at it again. I suggest you share this show. I suggest you share it to your neighbors. I suggest you show it to your friends. I suggest you show it to your churches. I suggest you definitely got to tell your mama about In the News with Keith Lander and this show about voting. This stuff is important, y'all. You need to understand when you get to the polls what's on that ballot and who these people are. All right? So, I'm going to close with this here. I'm going to show this video that Coach Powell posted up on the site about voting. Check this video out, folks. And until next time, may God bless you and your family.
I'm sorry. Try again. This is not a drill.
Beware.
This is not a
Beware.
This is not a drill. This is not a drill.
Beware.
This is not a drill. This is not a drill.
Beware.
This is not a drill.
We begin today with breaking news.
This is not a drill. 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 I'm sorry. Try again.
Beware.
This is not a drill.
Beware.
This is not a drill. Try again. This is not a drill.
Beware.
This is not a drill. This is not a drill. This is not a drill.
Beware.